The night a billionaire went to visit his wife's grave, he expected silence. Instead, he found a freezing little girl kneeling in the snow, crying over a grave no one else visited. What she said to him just minutes later would shake his past, his guilt, and his future in ways he never imagined. But the real truth, the one buried for years, was still waiting to rise. If stories about family, love, and second chances touch your heart, consider subscribing. There's a new story here every week. The snow had been falling since early morning, covering the cemetery in a quiet white blanket. Victor Hale stepped out of his black sedan and closed the door slowly, as if even the sound might disturb the stillness. The winter air cut through his coat, but he didn't react. He rarely noticed the cold anymore. This was the only place where the noise of his world didn't follow him. No board meetings. No investors. No headlines calling him a billionaire CEO. Just silence. He walked down the familiar stone path, his polished shoes leaving dark marks in the fresh snow. At the far end of the hill stood the grave he visited every week. Elizabeth Hale. Beloved wife. Gone too soon. Victor stopped in front of the stone and stood there for a long moment, his hands resting at his sides. "I closed the Chicago deal," he said quietly. "You would have told me not to work so much." The wind moved through the trees. "I'm trying," he added after a pause. "I just don't know how to live without you." For a man who controlled companies worth billions, grief was the one thing he had never been able to manage. He took a slow breath and was about to kneel when a sound cut through the silence. Crying. Not quiet sniffles. Not distant noise. Real crying. Deep. Broken. The kind that came from someone who had nothing left to hold on to. Victor frowned and turned his head. Near the older section of the cemetery, just beyond a narrow stone path, he saw a small figure. A child. She was kneeling in the snow. Victor hesitated for a moment, then walked slowly toward her. As he got closer, he could see her clearly. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old. Her dark hair hung damp around her face, and she wore a thin yellow dress under a worn-out sweater, far too light for the weather. Snow clung to her knees as she leaned forward, her small hands pressed against a grave. Her shoulders shook as she cried. Victor stopped a few steps away, unsure whether to speak. He had seen grief before. At funerals. In hospitals. In boardrooms after layoffs. But this was different. This was raw. Lonely. The kind of pain no child should carry alone. The girl wiped her face with the back of her hand, then pressed her forehead against the stone again. "I came back, Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling. Victor's chest tightened. He stepped forward gently, careful not to startle her. "Hey," he said softly. The girl looked up. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Her cheeks were pale from the cold, and her lips trembled as she tried to steady her breathing. For a second, she just stared at him. Then she said something that stopped him cold. "She was my mom." Victor followed her gaze to the grave. The headstone was newer than most around it. The letters were still sharp and clean. He leaned slightly to read the dates. She had died 3 months ago. The girl wiped her nose and sat back on her heels. "I come here every day," she said quietly. "I talk to her so she won't feel alone." Victor swallowed. "What's your name?" he asked. "Maya." "I'm Victor." She nodded once, then looked back at the grave. The wind picked up, and Victor noticed her hands shaking. She wasn't wearing gloves. Her shoes were thin and worn at the edges. Snow had already soaked through the fabric. "Did someone bring you here?" he asked. "I walked." "In this weather?" She gave a small shrug. "It hurts," she said simply. "But missing her hurts more." Victor didn't know what to say to that. After a moment, he asked, "Do you have family nearby?" Maya shook her head. It was just me and her. No father. I never met him. Her voice softened. Mom said he left before I was born. Victor felt something twist deep in his chest. He glanced at the grave again, then back at the child kneeling alone in the snow. "Where are you staying?" he asked carefully. Maya hesitated. "At the Red Maple Motel," she said finally. "Near the highway." "You live there?" "They let me stay because Mom worked there before she got sick." Victor frowned. "You stay there alone?" "I clean rooms," she said quickly, almost defensively. "So I can buy food." Victor stared at her. A child. Working. Living alone. Coming to a cemetery every day just to talk to her mother. The contrast hit him hard. His home had empty rooms bigger than the motel office. His bank account earned more in an hour than this child would see in a lifetime. And yet here she was, fighting to survive. Maya shivered again, her fingers stiff with cold. "I have to go back soon," she said. "The manager doesn't like it when I'm gone too long." Victor looked at her thin dress, her wet shoes, her trembling hands. Then he looked back at his wife's grave. Elizabeth had always told him the same thing. Success means nothing if you forget people. Victor took a slow breath. "Maya," he said gently, "how long has it been since you ate?" She looked down. "Yesterday," she admitted. "I found a granola bar at the front desk." That was the moment something inside him refused to walk away. "Come with me," he said. Maya's head snapped up. "I don't go with strangers." "That's smart," Victor said. "My name is Victor Hale. I come here every week to visit my wife." She studied him carefully. His coat. His shoes. His car parked near the gate. "You lost someone too?" she asked. "Yes." "Did you love her a lot?" Victor nodded slowly. "She was my whole world." Maya looked back at her mother's grave. "My mom was mine." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Snow fell quietly between them. A strange understanding formed in the cold. "I don't want to go back to the motel yet," Maya said softly. Victor removed his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Then let's just walk to the car," he said. "It's warm inside." She hesitated. Then, slowly, she stood. Her legs shook as she took her first step. Together, they began walking toward the cemetery gate. Behind them, two graves rested under fresh snow. One belonged to the woman Victor had lost. The other belonged to the woman Maya still spoke to every day. And neither of them knew yet that the truth connecting their lives had been buried for years, waiting for the right moment to be uncovered. Victor opened the passenger door and waited while Maya climbed inside. The moment she sat down, a long breath escaped her, like someone who had been holding it for hours. Warm air from the heater began to fill the car, and she pulled his coat tighter around her small shoulders. For a few seconds, she didn't speak. She just held her hands in front of the vent, watching the feeling return to her fingers. Victor walked around, got into the driver's seat, and started the engine. The windshield slowly cleared as the warmth spread through the cabin. He glanced at her. "When did you last eat?" he asked gently. Maya kept her eyes on her hands. "Yesterday," she said quietly. "There was a granola bar at the front desk. A guest didn't want it." Victor's jaw tightened. "That's not enough for a kid." "I try," she said quickly, almost apologizing. "Sometimes people leave food behind in the rooms. If it's still wrapped, the manager lets me take it." Victor didn't answer right away. He had negotiated million-dollar deals before breakfast that morning. And this child survived on leftovers. He shifted the car into drive. "First, we're getting you something warm to wear," he said. Then we're getting you a real meal. Maya looked at him, confused. You don't have to do all that. I know, Victor said calmly. I want to. They drove through the gray winter streets. Snow lined the sidewalks, and the sky hung low and heavy. Maya watched everything through the window. People carrying groceries, parents walking with children, a man lifting his daughter onto his shoulders. Her eyes followed them longer than the others. After a moment, she spoke again. Do you go to the cemetery every week? Yes. Do you still miss her? Victor didn't hesitate. Every day. Maya nodded slowly. I miss my mom the most in the mornings, she said. When I wake up and she's not there, it feels wrong. Like the world forgot something. Victor felt the weight of her words settle in his chest. You're very strong, he said. She shook her head. I don't feel strong, she whispered. I just feel alone. The car fell quiet. A few minutes later, Victor turned into a small shopping plaza and parked near a clothing store. Maya hesitated when he opened her door. Inside, bright lights and rows of winter clothes surrounded her. She moved slowly between the racks, touching the fabric like it didn't belong to her. Victor picked up a thick blue coat. Try this one. She slipped her arms into it. The sleeves covered her wrists, and the inside lining was soft and warm. She stood in front of a mirror, staring at her reflection. It's warm, she said, almost surprised. Victor added gloves, a knitted hat, thermal socks, and snow boots to the pile. Maya held the boots carefully. No one's ever bought me shoes before. You needed them, he said simply. At the counter, the cashier looked from Victor to Maya and then at the stack of items. Cold day for a kid to be out, she said. Victor nodded once. She won't be cold again. Outside, Maya carried one of the smaller bags like it was something important. When they reached the car, Victor looked at her. Hungry? She nodded. They drove a short distance to a small diner glowing with warm yellow light. Inside, the smell of soup and coffee filled the air. Maya slid into the booth closest to the heater. A waitress approached with a kind smile. What can I get for you? Victor looked at Maya. Anything you want. Maya opened the menu slowly. I don't know what to choose, she admitted. I've never ordered from one. The waitress leaned closer. How about tomato soup, grilled cheese, and hot chocolate? Maya's eyes lit up. Yes, please. When the food arrived, she ate carefully at first, like she was afraid it might disappear. Then hunger took over. She dipped the sandwich into the soup and finished every bite, warming her hands around the mug of hot chocolate. Color slowly returned to her cheeks. Victor watched quietly. How long have you been at the motel? He asked. Since Mom got sick, Maya said. Then after she died. I stayed. I didn't want to go to strangers. The manager knows you're alone? He said if I help clean rooms, he won't call social services. Victor leaned back slightly. Do you trust him? He's strict, Maya said. But he doesn't hurt me. He just says I cost money because I use water and heat. Victor looked down at the table. That's not your fault. I try to work more so he doesn't get mad. There was a long pause. Then Maya looked up. Can I ask you something? Of course. You looked strange earlier, when I talked about my mom. Victor's eyes met hers. The way you described her, he said slowly. You mentioned a scar on her chin. Maya nodded. She fell while carrying a tray at work. Victor's fingers tightened around his coffee cup. I knew someone with that scar, he said quietly. Maya leaned forward. Do you think you knew my mom? I don't know yet, Victor admitted. But something about your story feels familiar. Maya studied his face. Mom used to say my father was rich, she said softly. She said he owned buildings. That he was very successful. Victor didn't move. She said he left before I was born, Maya continued. But she never told me his name. She said he wouldn't want me. The words hung heavy between them. After a moment, Maya asked, almost afraid of the answer, "Do you think he's still alive?" "Yes," Victor said quietly. "Do you think he knows about me?" Victor shook his head. "No." Maya looked down at her hands. "What if he still doesn't want me?" Victor leaned forward slightly, his voice steady. "If he has any heart at all, he'll want you. And if he doesn't, then he's a fool." Maya looked at him again, searching his face. "Do you think he loved her?" Victor's throat tightened. "Yes," he said softly. "I believe he did." She watched him for a long moment. "Then why did he leave?" Victor didn't answer right away. Outside the window, snow began falling harder, blurring the streetlights. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower. "Sometimes," he said, "a man thinks chasing success will fix everything." Maya tilted her head. "What if he was wrong?" Victor looked straight at her. "Then he's probably been living with that mistake ever since." Maya's expression changed slowly. "You talk like you know him," she said. Victor held her gaze. After a long silence, he spoke quietly. "I might know him better than anyone." Maya didn't look away. For a moment, she just stared at Victor, her small hands wrapped around the empty mug, her eyes searching his face the way a child looks at someone who might hold an answer to a question they've carried for years. "Did you know my mom?" she asked quietly. Victor drew in a slow breath. "Yes," he said. The word seemed to settle between them, heavy and fragile at the same time. "How long ago?" Maya asked. "A long time," Victor replied. "Before my company grew. Before my life got busy. Before everything started moving too fast." Maya's fingers tightened around the mug. "Were you close?" Victor's eyes drifted for a moment, as if he were looking somewhere far behind the diner walls. "We were," he said softly. "Closer than I realized at the time." Maya swallowed. "Then why did you leave her?" Victor didn't answer right away. The question didn't come with anger. It came with something worse. Honesty. "I thought I had time," he said finally. "I thought I could build something first. Make money. Become successful. I told myself love could wait." Maya's voice dropped. "My mom cried sometimes," she said. "At night. When she thought I was asleep." Victor's chest tightened. "What did she say?" he asked. "She said she wished he had stayed," Maya whispered. "She said she wished he knew I was coming. She said maybe he would have been proud of me." Victor looked down at the table. His hand slowly curled into a fist. "What else did she tell you?" he asked quietly. "She said he was kind," Maya continued. "That he laughed a lot. That he loved her, even if he didn't know how to stay." Victor closed his eyes for a moment. Old memories came back without warning. A small apartment. Late-night conversations. Promises made too easily. Dreams that felt bigger than responsibility. And then the day he chose ambition over everything else. When he opened his eyes again, Maya was still watching him. "Do you think she was talking about you?" she asked. Victor didn't try to avoid it. "Yes," he said. Maya's breath caught. "So, you think you might be my father?" Victor leaned back slowly. "I don't want to say something that might hurt you if I'm wrong," he said carefully. "I don't have proof. But your mom's name, the scar, the timing, your age, it all matches my past." Maya's eyes filled, But she didn't cry. "Then why do you look scared?" she asked. Victor let out a long breath. "Because if it's true," he said, "that means she went through everything alone. That means you grew up without me. And there's nothing I can do to give those years back." Maya leaned forward slightly. "You said you would have stayed if you knew." "I would have," Victor said. "I mean that." "Then why didn't she tell you?" Victor shook his head slowly. "When I last saw her, my life was changing fast. I was already engaged. My career was taking off. Maybe she thought reaching out would only hurt her more. Maybe she didn't want to risk you growing up disappointed." Maya folded her hands together. "Do you wish she had told you?" "Yes," Victor said without hesitation. "Do you think she forgave you?" Victor's voice softened. "I hope so." Maya looked down at the table. "I used to imagine my dad," she admitted. "I imagined him knocking on the door one day. I imagined him walking in and hugging her. I imagined him seeing me and just knowing me." Victor felt the weight of every word. "That wasn't wrong," he said gently. "You were a kid hoping to be loved." Maya hesitated, then asked the question carefully. "If you are my father, do you want me?" Victor didn't answer right away. He looked at her small hands, the new coat folded beside her, the tired strength in her eyes. "I want the truth first," he said. "But I also want you safe. I want you warm. I want you in a place where you don't have to work to eat. And if the truth is what I think it is, then yes. I want you in my life." Maya blinked slowly. "So, you wouldn't leave?" "No," Victor said. "Not again." The waitress placed the check on the table, quietly sensing the heaviness between them. Victor paid and stood. "Come on," he said gently. "The roads are getting icy." They stepped outside. Snow was falling harder now, covering the streets in a thick white layer. The cold hit their faces, but Maya stayed close to him as they walked to the car. Before getting in, she stopped. "Victor!" He turned. "If you're not my father, will you still help me?" "Yes," he said. "And if you are?" Victor held her gaze. "Then I'm not going anywhere." Maya nodded once and climbed into the car. They drove through the quiet streets, the city lights glowing through the falling snow. After a few minutes, Victor spoke. "Where are you sleeping tonight?" "Room 7, Maya said. "There's a small cot behind the office." Victor's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. "That's not safe." "It's the only place I have." They drove in silence for a moment. Then Maya spoke again. "My mom kept something," she said. Victor glanced at her. "What do you mean?" "She had a photo," Maya said. "She kept it hidden in her bag. I never saw the front, but I saw the back once. There was a date written on it." Victor felt something shift inside him. "What date?" he asked quietly. Maya told him. Victor's breath caught. That was the year he left. The year he walked away from the woman he loved. Maya turned toward him. "If that picture is still there," she said softly, "it might tell us the truth." Victor nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "Then we need to find it." A few minutes later, the Red Maple Motel came into view. The building looked older than Victor remembered. Paint peeled along the walls, and the neon sign flickered weakly in the snow. Maya looked at it quietly. "I'll go get the bag," she said. Victor turned off the engine. "I'm coming with you." She hesitated. "The manager doesn't like visitors." Victor opened his door. "I'm not a visitor." Together, they walked toward the office, the cold wind pushing against them. Inside, the air smelled faintly of old carpet and cleaning supplies. The manager sat behind the counter, his expression tightening the moment he saw Maya. "You again?" he said sharply. "You said you'd be cleaning the first floor." Maya lowered her eyes. "I just need my mom's bag." The manager looked past her at Victor, his eyes narrowing at the suit, the posture, the quiet confidence. "And who's this?" he asked. Victor stepped forward. "A friend," he said calmly. "She needs her belongings." The manager leaned back in his chair. "You know she's behind on payments?" Victor's voice stayed even. "She's a child." The manager shrugged. "Kindness only goes so far." Victor reached into his wallet. "I'll cover everything she owes," he said. The manager's eyes changed instantly. "Storage room," he muttered. "Back hallway." Maya hurried past the counter, Victor following close behind. In the dim storage room, boxes and old bags were stacked along the walls. She searched quickly, her hands shaking. Then she found it. A worn brown bag with frayed edges. She pulled it down and opened it slowly. Clothes. Receipts. Small personal things. Then her hand stopped. There was a photo tucked between two folded shirts. Maya picked it up carefully. Victor stepped closer, his heart pounding. "Turn it over," he said quietly. Maya took a breath and flipped the photo around. For a moment, neither of them breathed. The photo was old, its edges slightly faded, the colors softened by time. But the image was still clear. A young woman stood in the center, smiling the kind of smile that came from real happiness, not effort. Her hair was longer, her face younger, but the small scar on her chin was unmistakable. And beside her stood a man. His arm rested around her shoulders. He was younger too. No gray at his temples. No heaviness in his eyes. His smile was easy, confident, untouched by regret. It was Victor. Maya's hands began to tremble. She looked at the photo again, then slowly lifted her eyes to him. "So," her voice cracked, "it's you." Victor felt the ground shift under him. "Yes," he said quietly. "That's me." Maya stared at him as if she were trying to recognize something that had always been missing. "You're my father," she whispered. The words didn't sound like anger. They sounded like something fragile finally finding a place to land. Victor stepped closer, his voice low. "And you're my daughter." For a second, neither of them moved. Then Maya clutched the photo tightly against her chest, like she was afraid the truth might disappear if she let go. "You left her," she said. Victor nodded once. "I did. You left both of us." "I didn't know about you," he said, his voice unsteady. "If I had known, I would have come back. I would have stayed." Maya's eyes filled, but her voice stayed soft. "She waited for you." The words hit harder than any accusation. Victor closed his eyes. "I know," Maya continued. "She kept that picture. She never threw it away." He swallowed, the weight of years pressing down on him. "I should have come back anyway," he said quietly. "I should have looked for her." Maya looked down at the photo. "She died alone," she whispered. Victor didn't defend himself. "I'm sorry," he said. The apology sounded small compared to the years of absence, but it was the only truth he had. Maya stood there for a long moment, her small shoulders tense, her fingers pressed into the edges of the photograph. "I wanted a dad," she said finally. "For a long time. I imagined him. I thought maybe one day he'd find us." Victor took a careful step closer. "I can't change the past," he said. "But I can be here now. I can take care of you. I can give you a home. I can make sure you're never alone again." Maya didn't answer right away. The storage room felt very quiet. Outside, the wind pushed against the building. "What if you change your mind?" she asked. Victor shook his head. I won't. People say things, Maya said. Then they leave. Victor lowered himself to her level so they were eye to eye. I didn't know you existed, he said. Now I do. And I'm not walking away from you again. Maya studied his face carefully. She wasn't looking for words. She was looking for hesitation, for doubt, for anything that felt temporary. But she didn't see it. What she saw was something heavier. Regret. And a man who looked tired of carrying it alone. After a long moment, she gave a small nod. Victor reached for the brown bag and took it gently. Let's go, he said. They walked back through the office without speaking. The manager glanced up but said nothing when he saw Victor's expression. Outside, the snow had grown thicker, covering the parking lot in white. The cold wind hit Maya's face, but she stayed close to him as they crossed toward the car. Victor opened the passenger door for her. As she climbed in, she held the photo carefully in her lap. He drove out of the motel slowly, the tires crunching over fresh snow. For a while, Maya just looked out the window. Then she spoke. Where are we going? My house, Victor said. She turned toward him. Is it big? He gave a small breath. It's just a house. She looked back at the photo. Will I have my own room? Yes. Will I be alone there? You won't be alone, he said gently. She thought about that for a moment. Can I see pictures of your wife? She asked. Victor nodded. Yes. Would she be mad if I lived there? The question caught him off guard. No, he said softly. She would have wanted me to take care of you. Maya pressed the photo lightly against her chest. My mom would have wanted that too. They drove through quiet streets until the city thinned and the houses grew larger. Then the iron gates appeared. They opened slowly as Victor's car approached. Maya leaned forward, her eyes widening as the mansion came into view. Warm lights glowed from the windows. Snow rested on the roof and along the wide front steps. It looks like a dream, she whispered. Victor parked near the entrance. It's not a dream, he said. It's your home now. Inside, warmth wrapped around them immediately. Soft lights, thick carpets, the quiet comfort of a place that had never known cold floors or empty refrigerators. Maya stepped in carefully, her boots barely making a sound. She looked around like she was afraid to touch anything. Victor guided her into the living room. You can sit wherever you want. She chose the very edge of the couch, holding the photo in one hand and her mother's bag in the other. Victor brought a blanket and placed it around her shoulders. I'll make some tea, he said. She looked surprised. You make tea? I'm not great at it, he admitted. But I'll try. For the first time since the cemetery, Maya smiled. A small, careful smile. I want to try your tea, she said. While he was in the kitchen, she stood and slowly walked around the room. Her eyes stopped at the mantel. A framed photograph stood there. A woman with gentle eyes and a warm smile. Maya stepped closer. When Victor returned with 2 cups, he saw her standing there. That's your wife? She asked. Yes. She looks kind. She was. Maya studied the photo quietly. Did she want children? Victor's voice softened. Yes. Maya touched the frame lightly. She would have liked me then. Victor stepped beside her. She would have loved you. Maya nodded slowly. Then her expression changed. My mom didn't look peaceful at the end, she said quietly. Victor placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You were her peace, he said. Maya lowered her eyes. After a moment, she let him guide her back to the couch. You should rest, he said. You've had a long day. She lay down under the blanket, still holding the photo. Will you be here in the morning? She asked. Yes. You promise? I promise. She watched him for a moment longer. Then her voice softened. Can you sit here until I fall asleep? Victor sat down beside her. I'm not going anywhere. Maya curled slightly into the blanket. Within minutes, her breathing slowed. Her small hand relaxed. The photo rested against her chest. Victor stayed there, watching the child he had lost years ago without ever knowing. Outside, the snow continued to fall. Inside, the house was quiet. And as the night grew deeper, Victor realized something that both comforted and frightened him at the same time. This wasn't just a second chance. It was a life he didn't know how to live yet. And by morning, everything would have to change. Morning light slowly filled the living room, soft and pale against the tall windows. Maya stirred under the blanket. For a moment, she didn't move. She just lay there, her eyes half open, as if she was trying to remember where she was. Then she turned her head. Victor was still sitting in the chair beside the couch. He hadn't slept. When she saw him, her eyes widened slightly. You stayed, she said softly. I told you I would. She pushed herself up slowly, the blanket falling around her shoulders. For a few seconds, she just looked around the room again, the quiet, the warmth, the space that didn't feel temporary. Then her eyes dropped to the photo still resting in her lap. The reality came back. She looked at Victor. What happens now? Victor leaned forward, resting his hands together. Now we make sure you're safe, he said. We'll get your documents. Birth certificate, school records, medical history. I'll talk to a lawyer and start the guardianship process. Maya listened carefully. You mean, I don't have to go back to the motel? No, he said gently. You're not going back there. She nodded slowly, like she was trying to let the words settle somewhere deep enough to believe them. And you're not leaving? She asked. Victor shook his head. No, not again. Maya slipped her feet onto the floor and stood, still holding the blanket around her shoulders. I think my mom wanted me to find you, she said quietly. Victor looked at her. I think she did too. There was a pause. Then Maya walked toward him and held out the photo. Can I call you something? She asked. Victor took the photo carefully. You can call me whatever feels right. She hesitated. Can I call you Dad, someday? Victor's throat tightened. You can call me Dad today, he said. Maya stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. The hug was tight. Careful, but tight. Victor closed his eyes and held her just as firmly. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel empty. After a while, Maya pulled back. Can I see the rest of the house? She asked. Victor nodded. He showed her the kitchen, the dining room, the long hallway with tall windows. She walked slowly, touching things gently, as if she was afraid someone might tell her she didn't belong there. When they reached the second floor, he opened the door to a guest room. This one can be yours, he said. Maya stepped inside. The room was bigger than the entire motel office. A large bed, a dresser, a desk by the window. She walked to the bed and pressed her hand against the blanket. It's soft, she said. You'll have your own bathroom too, Victor added. She turned back toward him. Do I have to be careful with everything? No, he said. This is your home now. Maya nodded slowly. Then she asked the question that surprised him. Will people be mad that I'm here? Victor frowned slightly. Why would they be mad? She looked down. Because I'm poor. The word came out simply. No shame. Just truth. Victor walked over and knelt in front of her. You're not here because of money, he said. You're here because you're my daughter. She studied his face. Then she gave a small nod. Downstairs, the phone rang. Victor checked the screen. His assistant. He answered. Yes. Her voice came quickly through the line. Sir, the board meeting is in 40 minutes. The investors from Boston are all ready. I won't be there, Victor said. There was a pause. Sir, I won't be there, he repeated. Cancel the meeting. Another pause. That meeting has been scheduled for 3 months. Then they can schedule another one. His assistant hesitated. Is everything all right? Victor looked across the living room. Maya was standing near the window, watching the snow fall again. Yes, he said quietly. Everything is finally becoming important. He ended the call. When he turned back, Maya was watching him. You skipped work? She asked. I have more important things to do today. She didn't smile. Instead, her expression turned serious. You shouldn't lose your job because of me. Victor walked over to her. I own the company, he said. She blinked. Oh. Then she thought about it. That means you're really rich. Victor gave a small breath. Yes. Maya looked down at her hands. My mom used to say rich people live in a different world. Victor's voice softened. Maybe they do, he said. But that world forgot something. What? How to take care of what actually matters. Maya didn't answer right away. After a moment, she spoke again. Dad. The word came out quietly. Testing. Victor looked at her. Yes. Can I go back to the cemetery today? He didn't hesitate. Yes. I want to tell her, Maya said. I want to tell her I found you. Victor nodded. We'll go together. They drove out an hour later, the snow still falling lightly across the roads. When they reached the cemetery, Maya walked straight to her mother's grave. She knelt down, brushing fresh snow away with her gloved hands. Victor stayed a few steps back. Maya leaned forward and spoke softly. Mom, I found him. Her voice trembled. He didn't know about me. But he's here now. And he said he's not leaving. She placed the photo at the base of the stone. I'm not alone anymore. Victor turned slightly, giving her space. After a moment, Maya stood and walked back to him. Thank you for coming, she said. They began walking back toward the car. But halfway down the path, Maya slowed. Her eyes moved to another section of the cemetery. Dad, she said quietly. Victor followed her gaze. A small group of people stood near a grave not far away. A black car was parked nearby. A man in an expensive coat spoke to someone, his posture stiff, controlled. Maya's expression changed. I know him, she whispered. Victor frowned. From where? Maya swallowed. He came to the motel once, she said. He was asking questions about my mom. Victor's attention sharpened. What kind of questions? Maya's voice dropped. He wanted to know if she ever tried to contact anyone before she died. Victor looked back toward the man. A strange tension moved through him. Did he say who he was? Victor asked. Maya shook her head slowly. No, she said. Then she looked up at Victor, her eyes suddenly uncertain. But he said something strange before he left. Victor felt his chest tighten. What did he say? Maya hesitated. Then she whispered. He said, if her past ever came looking for her, it wouldn't be for something good. Victor didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed on the man across the cemetery. The figure stood near a polished black headstone, speaking briefly to someone before the other person walked away. Even from a distance, there was something about his posture, controlled, precise, the kind of confidence that came from power and money. The man turned slightly. For a second, Victor caught a clear look at his face, and something cold moved through him. Not recognition, but instinct. The kind that told him this wasn't coincidence. He placed a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder. "When did he come to the motel?" Victor asked quietly. "A few weeks before Mom died," Maya said. "He talked to the manager first. Then he asked if he could speak to her." "Did you hear what they talked about?" Maya shook her head. "They argued," she said. "Mom told him to leave. After he went, she locked the door and cried for a long time." Victor's jaw tightened. "Did he come back again?" "No. But after that, Mom was scared. She kept checking the window at night." Victor glanced back toward the man. The figure was walking toward the parking area now, snow crunching under his shoes. Maya stepped a little closer to Victor. "I didn't tell you before," she said softly, "because I thought it didn't matter anymore." Victor's voice stayed calm, but firm. "Everything about your mom matters." They stood there as the man reached a black sedan and got inside. The car started and slowly drove away through the falling snow. Victor didn't look away until it disappeared beyond the gate. When he finally turned back to Maya, his expression had changed. Not fear. Focus. "Did your mom ever tell you anything about her life before you were born?" he asked. Maya thought for a moment. "She said things were hard," Maya answered. "She worked 2 jobs back then. But she didn't talk much about it." "Did she ever mention problems? Someone bothering her? Anyone she was afraid of?" Maya hesitated. "Just once," she said quietly. "She told me that sometimes when people become successful, they forget the people they hurt along the way." Victor felt that sentence land heavier than the rest. "And she told me something else," Maya added. "What?" "She said if anything ever happened to her, I should stay quiet about our past. She said some people only care about money, and they don't like surprises." Victor exhaled slowly. The cold wind moved across the cemetery, but he barely noticed it now. He took Maya's hand. "Let's go back to the car." They walked in silence. As he drove away, Victor's mind moved through old memories, business deals, partnerships, people he had crossed paths with over the years. Success brought opportunity. But it also brought enemies. And secrets. Maya sat quietly beside him, watching the snow through the window. After a while, she spoke. "Are you worried?" Victor kept his eyes on the road. "I don't know yet," he said honestly. "But I think your mom was trying to protect you." "From what?" He glanced at her. "From the part of my world that isn't kind." Maya pulled her coat tighter. "I don't like your world," she said simply. Victor gave a small breath. "Sometimes I don't either." When they reached the house, Maya went straight to the living room and sat on the couch, holding the photo again. Victor stood near the window, already dialing his phone. His assistant answered immediately. "Yes, sir." "I need background information," Victor said. Discreetly. "I'm going to send you a name and a location. I want to know if anyone has been making inquiries about a woman who passed away 3 months ago." There was a pause. "Is this business related?" "Yes," Victor said. "Very." After the call, he stood there for a moment, looking out at the snow-covered yard. Maya's voice came softly from behind him. "Are you in trouble?" He turned. "No." "Then why do you look like that?" Victor walked back toward her and sat down across from the couch. "When someone shows up asking questions about your mom right before she dies," he said carefully, "I want to understand why." Maya's fingers tightened around the photo. "She was sick," she said. "The doctors said it was her heart." Victor nodded. "I'm not saying anything happened to her," he said gently. I just want to make sure there's nothing else going on." Maya watched him for a long moment. Then she asked quietly, "Does being rich mean people come after you?" Victor didn't soften the answer. "Sometimes." She lowered her eyes. "I don't want anyone coming after you because of me." Victor leaned forward. "No one is coming after you," he said firmly. "And if they try, they'll have to go through me first." Maya studied his face. Then she nodded once. A few minutes passed in silence. Then Maya spoke again. "Dad." "Yes." "If my mom was scared, why didn't she ask you for help?" Victor's expression shifted. "That's a good question," he admitted. He looked down at his hands. "Maybe she thought I wouldn't come," he said quietly. Maya shook her head. "She kept your picture," she said. "She believed you would." Victor didn't respond. The weight of that belief pressed deeper than any guilt he had carried before. Even after everything. Even after he left. She had believed in him. The phone buzzed on the table. Victor picked it up. His assistant's voice came through, tighter this time. "Sir, you asked me to check if anyone was making inquiries." "Yes. There was someone." Victor's grip tightened. "Who?" "A private legal firm," she said. "They were looking into whether the woman had any surviving family." Victor glanced at Maya. "What did they want?" he asked. There was a short pause. "They were checking for inheritance claims." Victor's expression hardened. "Inheritance?" he repeated. "Yes, sir. And there's something else." "What?" "The firm isn't independent." Victor's voice dropped. "Who hired them?" Another pause. Then his assistant said quietly, "Someone connected to your company." Victor didn't speak for several seconds. He stood there, the phone still in his hand, while Maya watched his face carefully. "Who?" he asked again, his voice lower this time. His assistant hesitated. "The request came through a legal channel tied to one of your senior partners," she said. "The same partner who's been pushing the expansion deal for the past year." Victor felt something cold settle in his chest. "Send me everything," he said. "Yes, sir." The call ended. Maya didn't move. "Is it bad?" she asked quietly. Victor walked back to the couch and sat beside her. "I don't know yet," he said. "But it means someone thought your mom might have a legal claim to something connected to me." Maya frowned. "But Mom never asked you for anything." "I know," Victor said, and that was what troubled him most. If she had never reached out, then someone else must have been looking for her. The next 2 days moved quickly. Documents were requested. Lawyers were called. Background checks were done quietly. Maya stayed close to Victor most of the time. She helped him water the plants. She sat at the kitchen counter while he worked from home. Sometimes she simply watched him, like she was still making sure he wouldn't disappear. On the third evening, Victor received the full report. He read it slowly. Then he closed the folder and sat very still. Maya was at the table drawing. "Dad?" she said when she noticed his expression. "What did you find?" Victor walked over and sat across from her. "The man who visited your mom," he said carefully, "was working for someone at my company." Maya's pencil stopped moving. "Why?" Victor took a breath. "Because years ago, before I met your mother, I signed a private investment agreement with that partner. It included a personal clause. If I ever had an undisclosed heir, my company shares could be challenged." Maya blinked. "They were looking for me?" "Yes." "Why didn't they tell you?" "Because if they could prove your existence quietly," Victor said, "they could force a legal fight and weaken my position." Maya looked down. "So, I'm a problem." Victor leaned forward immediately. "No," he said firmly. "You're not a problem. You're the reason I finally know what matters." He stood up and walked to the window, the snow still falling softly outside. "They went to your mom to get information," he continued. "She refused. That's why she argued with that man." Maya's voice was small. "She protected you." Victor turned back to her. "No," he said. "She protected you." The next morning, Victor walked into his company headquarters for the first time since Maya arrived. The boardroom was quiet when he entered. The partner who had ordered the investigation sat across from him, calm but tense. "I know what you did," Victor said. The man didn't deny it. "You hid a potential heir," the partner replied. "That affects ownership. I had a responsibility to the company." "You sent someone to pressure a sick woman," Victor said quietly. The man didn't answer. Victor placed a folder on the table. "She's my daughter," he said. "And I'm restructuring my shares." The partner's expression changed. "You can't be serious." "I'm transferring a protected trust to her name," Victor continued. "And I'm buying out your position." The room went silent. It took 3 days. 3 days of negotiations, contracts, and financial moves that cost Victor a large portion of his personal wealth. When it was done, the partner was gone. The legal threats were over. And Maya's future was secure. That evening, Victor came home later than usual. Maya was sitting on the living room floor with her drawings spread around her. She looked up immediately. "Did everything get fixed?" she asked. Victor sat down beside her. "Yes." "Are you still rich?" she asked carefully. Victor smiled slightly. "Not as rich as before." Maya's face fell. "I'm sorry." He shook his head. "I'm not." She looked confused. Victor reached for one of her drawings. It showed a small house. 2 figures standing outside. Snow falling around them. "For years," he said softly, "I worked to build something bigger and bigger. More money. More power. More success." He looked at her. "And I lost the people who mattered while I was doing it." Maya didn't say anything. Victor's voice grew quieter. "But the night I found you in that cemetery, I realized something." He took her hand. "Money builds houses. But love is what makes someone wait for you to come home." Maya's eyes filled. She leaned forward and hugged him tightly. "I'm glad you found me," she whispered. Victor held her just as close. "I'm the one who was lost," he said. That weekend, they went back to the cemetery together. Maya placed fresh flowers on her mother's grave. Victor stood beside her this time. "I made some mistakes," he said quietly to the stone. "But I'm going to spend the rest of my life getting this part right." Maya slipped her hand into his. The snow had stopped. For the first time, the sky was clear. And as they walked back toward the car together, the space between past and future didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt open. It felt possible. Because in the end, wealth hadn't saved Victor. Success hadn't brought him peace. The thing that changed his life was a cold afternoon, a little girl in the snow, and the chance to choose love before it was too late. And sometimes, the greatest fortune a person can have is someone who calls them family. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and tell me in the comments which region you're watching from.